Recently, the Philippines and the United States took steps to expand the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. On February 2nd, the longtime allies announced that rotating batches of American forces will be granted access to 4 more Philippine military camps. This increased access would be of great benefit to U.S. forces, which are seeking an increased presence in the region to counter China. This is one of the most significant geostrategic developments in the region as the United States proceeds with its Pivot to Asia strategy. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said it's a big deal. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes how the Philippines pushed back against China by providing access to 4 more bases to the U.S. Let's get into the details. The Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, is an agreement between the United States and the Philippines that was signed in 2014. The purpose of the agreement is to enhance defense cooperation between the two countries and to promote regional peace and stability. Under the terms of the agreement, the United States is allowed to rotate troops and assets through designated Philippine military bases and to store equipment and supplies in those bases. The agreement also provides for joint training exercises and capacity-building programs, as well as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts. The EDCA is seen as a significant step in the U.S.-Philippines alliance as it strengthens the ability of the two countries to work together on a wide range of security and defense issues. The latest arrangement builds on the previous 5 bases: Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu, and Palawan, which were present in the original agreement created in 2014. U.S.-funded development is in the process in these 5 bases, which will see the construction of barracks, warehouses, and other buildings to accommodate a considerable number of troops. EDCA is beneficial for both nations. China claims most of the South China Sea and is militarizing it by creating artificial islands and deploying weapons and radars. It's said that it has indisputable sovereignty over the area. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan have disputed these claims. In 2013, the Philippines government, led by then-President Benigno Aquino III, brought an arbitration case against China in the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, Netherlands. On the 12th of July 2016, the tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines. The landmark decision rejected China's assertion that it enjoys historic rights over the huge area of the South China Sea, encompassed by its so-called 9-dash line. China had argued that the tribunal had no jurisdiction in the matter and rejected the decision. China's been poking the Philippines time and again by intruding in its waters. Just a few days ago, the Philippines Coast Guard has accused a Chinese Coast Guard ship of firing a military-grade laser on one of its vessels as tensions continue to escalate in the South China Sea. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. summoned China's ambassador to express his serious concern over China's actions in the South China Sea, and the Foreign Ministry called on Beijing to stop its vessels' aggressive activities. Last month, the Philippine government said that the CCG harassed local fishermen near Ayungin Shoal. While previous President Rodrigo Duterte had been attempting to forge closer ties with Beijing despite Chinese wrongdoing, current President Romualdez Marcos Jr. is taking a more assertive position in dealing with China. The U.S. is looking for increased capacity across the First Island chain to counter China. Of the U.S. services engaging with the Philippines, the U.S. Marine Corps has taken center stage in these efforts. These new sites can prove to be crucial for marine plans going forward in the Western Pacific. In case China attempts to invade Taiwan, access to the Philippines for the U.S. Marines would be key. Concepts of the U.S. Marine Corps Force Design 2030 and Expeditionary Advanced Basing Operations have been employed in several exercises in the Philippines. This was seen evident in Balikatan 2022, which saw the maiden deployment of the 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment, MLR. During the exercise, the MLR deployed a number of concepts in coordination with the Philippine Marine Corps' Coastal Defense Regiment. Balikatan 2022 witnessed multiple expeditionary advanced bases and the first U.S. Army deployment of the Patriot air defense system to the exercise. Importantly, several segments of the Balikatan took place in provinces on the Luzon Strait facing Taiwan, which is the closest part of the Philippines to Taiwan. Infrastructure development on the island of Palawan is also a high priority, since it's the closest landmass to the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson told a regular press briefing the U.S. was strengthening its military deployment in the region out of its own selfish interests and with a zero-sum mentality. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said the U.S. military strengthening in the region was escalating tensions and risking peace and stability. Mao told reporters at a briefing in Beijing, "Regional countries need to remain vigilant and avoid being coerced or used by the U.S." But this situation is of its own making. It's been more than 30 years since Philippine lawmakers moved to end the permanent U.S. military presence in the country. Viewers may note that earlier the U.S. operated 2 major bases, but many Filipinos saw the bases as a legacy of U.S. colonialism and wanted to assert their independence. Now the Philippines is inviting the U.S. to increase its military footprint in the country again, primarily because China has pushed it too far. In a televised news conference with his Philippine counterpart, Carlito Galvez Jr., Austin gave assurances of U.S. military support and said the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, which obligates the U.S. and the Philippines to help defend each other in major conflicts, applies to armed attacks on either of our armed forces, public vessels, or aircraft anywhere in the South China Sea.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.